everyone. Good morning, Calm Parents. I'm Dr. Cam, and today I'm super excited because I have my niece Matty with me.
Hi. Hello.
So Matty is 22.
I'm 22.
She is a quintessential Gen Zer, right? Is that what you call yourself, a Gen
I
Zer?
guess, yeah. I guess.
Gen Zer. But she has agreed, to jump on and just kind of explain what the heck's going on with her generation.
Yeah.
So
I'm a little old for my generation.
you're a little on the older side, but that helps because a lot of the parents listening, obviously their kids are still teenagers. So what you can help with is really explaining what is this new normative going into it. And I think, growing up with social media, learning how to adult in the world today, and just what helped you, what didn't help you, what do you wish you knew then that you know now. So do you want to start a little bit just in terms of you're 22 trying to navigate the adult world? What does that look like?
It's kind of frustrating. It's so weird being an adult. It's so weird being grown, and like now I have to make decisions for myself, and now I want to be all by myself. I want to do it all on my own. But I still need my parents there when I fall down and stuff like that. So yeah.
What is helpful for you in terms of being prepared? Like growing up, what prepared you to go out on your own? Because I think this is a big question for a lot of parents. We want to protect our kids. We want to make sure their future is paved out for them, but we also want to prepare them. So what helped prepare you?
Yeah, the most helpful thing was probably having as much independence as I did growing up. I had the freedom to try new things. I had the freedom to make different experiences and kind of do it on my own and make those choices on my own, and then test and see what the outcomes were and change perspectives. But having the freedom to choose and make my own choices and make my own mistakes, and being there when I made my mistakes, but like also being a good support and just
and helping you learn through that. So now you feel like you can make better choices, or you're more confident in your ability to make choices. Okay.
Well, to an extent.
It takes
I feel comfortable making the choices, knowing if it's the wrong choice and I need to like draw back. I still have them there as like a support,
right?
Like
without
like
fear
a safe
of judgment, right? Without fear. And you've got your cool aunt too.
Yeah, and I got my cool aunt. Yeah,
right.
Who's also a big part of it too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because if I ever like effed up too much, then I can always go to you.
Yeah, I've had a few.
It was like a second.
I've had a few on. I always know when you're calling me like at a random time. I'm like, okay, what did she do now? Let's go talk her off the ledge.
Yeah,
which I love being able to do that. It's always fun doing that. So we wanted to talk a little bit about your story of coming out, because what I really want to lead into, and what I know you want to talk about too, is just this spectrum of sexuality now that I think for my generation is still very confusing, because we were, you were straight, you might be gay, but you didn't really talk about it that much, or we teased people. I mean, it was right now, a lot of us we were very not PC. Let's just say that we weren't PC. So navigating that now as a parent, and your kids are saying terms you don't even understand. The LGBTQ is adding letters and
alphabet mafia,
right? And I think it's scary to us. I think in a way we're unsure, is it confusing our younger kids, or is it helping them? So there we are. So we have a live studio audience, by the way. Do you want to say hi, Mom?
Say hi.
Hi.
Come on in.
Oh,
okay.
She didn't do her hair.
She's here.
So we have a live studio audience.
She's gorgeous.
She looks awesome. So anyway, do you want to start with your story a little bit on how that happened?
I would first like to touch on, it's as confusing as it is for parents, it is equally as confusing for anyone who's questioning their gender, their sexuality, or anything. It's a very odd, I don't know. But what was the original question?
So there's a lot of questions.
My story. So I came out January 2nd, 2018. That was like the first time I like came out to my family and stuff like that. And I was in college. I was a freshman in college, and it was a very new thing to me, a very new thing, dating girls and in that kind of way. And all growing up, I was straight. I identified as
always
straight.
Had a boyfriend growing up.
Yeah, always. And and I was very kind of insecure about that when I first came out. But then there's so many people with the similar stories. So there's this thing called compulsive heterosexuality.
Okay, say that again.
Compulsive heterosexuality.
Okay.
And what that means is basically growing up, all in media, everywhere you look, everyone's straight. Everyone everywhere is straight. That's the norm. You grow up and, you're viewed as straight until you come out. And so you see that and you kind of think, this is normal. It's just what I should be doing. This is all I've grown up knowing.
Right.
And, you fall into that pattern. And then until you start questioning that, and then it's all up in the air.
So when you start questioning it, and when you were growing up, it was a lot more acceptable, and there was more people in the media, and now even more so with social media. I mean, there's a lot of people that are very, very out and vocal about it. So I think it's becoming more normal for your age group. For my age group, it's still what is going on in the world, like what's happening, because for us it was like, I mean, being straight, and most parents, I would say, still prefer their children to be straight because it's what's most acceptable and normative, normal, what we know.
We're in a heteronormative society.
We are. And a lot of people also believe that is the only way, right? So there's a lot of the religious issues and questions that people come up with too. So explain to us as parents, and I know there's parents out there whose kids are questioning, and they're, they can be as young as 10, 11, and they're questioning. How do we address that in a way that's gonna help our kids and not hurt them?
Just being open to whatever. If your kid comes and is, I want to wear men's clothes, or I want to wear makeup, I want to do this or that. That doesn't mean necessarily that you're gay or you're questioning your gender or anything. But also, questioning is a whole process. It's a whole process. You start out like, if I backtrack and look on some of the things that I'd done when I was younger or as a kid, and I was like, how in the world did I not know when I I don't know. But it's a big process, and it can change, and sexuality and gender is both a spectrum, and it can fluctuate, and you can choose something, and then you can change your mind, and then you can you might believe that you're bisexual, and then a lot of bisexuals will eventually come out as gay or lesbian, and then like a lot of just gay people will come out as transgender, and just things like that, or non-binary or anything. And it can just being open and ask questions, try to figure out what's the proper language, what should I be using, what would be a more, I don't know, a better vocabulary.
Well, I think one of the things that we see a lot now is people will say, what pronoun do you associate with?
Yeah, what are your pronouns?
What are your pronouns? And a lot of people on social media have like she, her, or he's, he, him. And so we've got that. And I think for your generation that's becoming Actually, I see a lot of people in my generation doing it too.
Yeah.
You know, and we're doing it.
Every
we're saying
age.
we're saying we're
People at
accepting
age
this.
can come out.
But I think it's still,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, understanding the spectrum. The spectrum. And my question is, do you think it makes it more confusing for kids who every child in the history of the world has gone through this questioning, right? We didn't have a lot of choices then. So it was pretty much either you were straight or gay, right? And now there's this, every letter of the alphabet has something.
I
So
think that's the confusing part, is the labels.
Yes.
I think the labels is the most confusing part. And, you know, it's just finding, but then you get into like the toxic part, which is like micro labeling, and every single small thing has a label, and it gets too confusing. And someone who's like questioning like their gender or things like that or like trying out different pronouns, that in some cases people might think that's trans, but then trans is such a very harsh term. Or like lesbian, the word lesbian is such a like a harsh word in society, and so people don't really feel like that sticks.
You still has that, it has a negative connotation.
It has a, I mean, not a negative connotation, but it means a lot. It means a lot to be trans, and the trans community is a big thing. And some people might not feel comfortable being, you know, in that right away, but they could still want to try out using they pronouns and things like that, or being more androgynous and that kind of way.
And I think one thing to point out, because teenagers in general, young adults in general, are trying on different everything. I mean, they're trying on different likes, different clothing, different hair color, different friendships, different everything. And so this is another one of those things that they're trying on to see what fits. So I think one thing I always want to encourage parents is to let them try it on, because as soon as you try to shut it down or shame them for it or anything else, it starts them questioning what's going on. They're going to hide it more. It's going to become more of an inner turmoil, instead of just saying, you know what, today I want to be they. And you're like, okay, they. They, what do you want? So being able to kind of be flexible with it actually gives them more freedom to figure it out and get it right. I guess. The other thing
make those mistakes and try again. Be like, this doesn't feel right. That feels more right. I want to try out this today. Maybe that. Yeah.
And not having to put a label on it. That's another thing I tell younger kids. It's like, you don't have to label it yet. Or you don't have to.
You could just be.
Right. You can just be.
A lot of people feel, and especially when I first started coming out, I identified more with just queer or gay. I didn't identify as lesbian right away.
Okay. I don't know the difference between, I still get confused with queer versus gay, or I mean, gay, lesbian I get.
Yes.
But I'm getting confused.
But then queer is just the general everything. Like,
okay, so it's both.
It's a broad, it's an umbrella term.
It's a they version versus a he or a she version.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then adding, when we have the LGBTQ, and I feel like there's added ones.
Bisexual. A lot of people will identify as bisexual when they when they're questioning.
It's probably an easier transition.
It's an easy in between. Nice.
Safer. Safe straddle.
I don't want to.
Okay.
And so is also like maybe non-binary too, could be that way for some people.
Okay.
As being like an in between of
and
a precursor for some.
Non-binary, to explain that, is more of what you, not what you're attracted to, but what you associate.
Yeah, your gender.
Right.
That's gender. Non-binary is a gender.
Yeah.
And that means neither or.
Right.
Neither or.
One day you may want to be more feminine, another one more
masculine. That's gender fluid.
Okay, that's gender fluid.
Gender fluid is when you kind of sway back and forth. Non-binary, you are your own gender. You set which is also, I think, it's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You set your own gender and you decide what that means for you. And you're neither.
I'm curious that possibly this fact that we have become as a society, at least in the past, have become so, we've separated what is boy versus what is girls so succinctly.
Oh my God.
Right?
God. Yeah.
You know, a boy wants to play with a doll, and I remember working in when I was
everything from the second before you're even born
it's all pink.
It's pink or blue,
right?
Pink or blue and pink or blue, and oh my gosh, and
so I think because it's been so separate, and people are like, well, I'm a boy, but I love playing, you know, I love wearing a dress, or I love Barbies. The Barbies is a great one. I remember interviewing. Oh yeah, unicorns are. I remember doing research in a preschool, and this little boy the boys love to run around in high heels and purses because they identified with their moms, right? And they loved it. And these dads would come in, and these like military, you know, kind of tough, manly man dads, and freak out when they saw their kids running around. And I think there's this belief that even at that young age, you can either become gay or, you know, right? Or you can switch, or because they're so separate, there's more people associated in the between somewhere. And so this is really saying, I am not like feminine girly girl, or I'm not like manly man. I'm a amalgamy.
Pushing gender stereotypes and gender norms onto young kids. I've learned being a preschool teacher. It's very hurtful for them, and a lot of kids, and it doesn't mean anything. Like, you see your mom taking care of babies, so you want to go like mimic that. And I want to play with baby, or you like building blocks. You see your older brother building Legos. I loved building Legos as a little kid, but I mean, it's
you want to go dance as a boy.
And clothing, what clothes do you want to wear instead of going to the girls section?
Yeah, what do you want to wear?
What do you want to wear?
Yeah,
what do you feel comfortable with?
Exactly.
Who do you want to dress up as for Halloween? You know?
Yes, can be anyone, and not creating the shame around it and this judgment. And I think that's still something that we get very uncomfortable with. And I think a lot of times, so it's being able to allow kids to experiment without, and it's stereotypes. It is not based in reality.
You walk in a Target and you see girls t-shirts that says like Mommy's Little Princess, and you see boys t-shirts that are like super smart, super cool dude, like strong.
Well, I think another big one that I always am helping, you know, teenagers with too is emotion. So there's actually stereotypical emotions that are acceptable for boys versus girls. So girls are allowed to cry, boys are not.
Yes.
Boys are allowed to get really angry and punch a wall, and girls aren't allowed to get angry as much, right? And so we have these emotions that we bottle up and don't know how to express, and they can come out in really unhealthy ways because, again, it's a stereotype. It is a creation. It is what we have manufactured. Even the blue and pink. I believe it was World War II. They created the blue and pink just to distinguish boy babies from girl babies, and they actually were going to do the other. Yeah, they were going to switch. So pink was boy because it looks like red meat, right? Rare meat. And so that is completely made up and manufactured. And so it is something that we ingrain in our kids. So I think that's really cool. So you wanted to talk a little bit about,
and it's everywhere,
heteronormative behavior. So explain heteronormative. So explain what you mean by heteronormative, and how that's impacting.
Heteronormative. Well, heteronormative is that. Heteronormative is the idea that there's, two binary genders and one sexuality, which is straight, And
so here's I'm gonna jump in real quick. So in terms of how bodies are built, there is a male body, and there's male parts and there's female parts. So I think this distinguishing between, I can't even pronounce, distinguishing between the two when they're born.
Yep.
I mean, you're either right. So there is a binary separation between you're a girl or you're a boy when you're born, correct?
Okay. And then the societal idea that everyone is straight. And so that that together, if we were not in a heteronormative cisgendered society, we wouldn't have homophobia.
Right.
It wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
If it was just normal to be whatever and all sexualities and all genders were accepted, then we wouldn't have homophobia. It wouldn't happen. We wouldn't have people scared to come out and people in a position where they aren't safe to be who they are.
Yeah. I think what I question even more are the people that are uncomfortable with other people coming out.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how does their life impact your life? So I think if it's consenting, it's fine. And it's, I don't want to get too political here because I think there's a lot about that. There's a lot of things that can come out that people will argue with. But I think in terms of being able to just be who you are and accepting who you are without these preconceived stereotypical notations that we put on people will create, do you think it's going to create more healthy, become more mentally healthy? Or I think some parents are worried that it's going to create more confusion and anxiety and stress if kids are unsure of what they identify as.
Well, you wouldn't have to stress about it if it wasn't such a big deal. Yeah. I think that's just what I wanted most when I came out. I didn't want it to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Why is coming out a big deal? It doesn't have to.
Did you feel like it was a big deal with your family?
No, I hope it wasn't.
I still remember when you called me because you did like a FaceTime call and I was at a conference. I was like, oh, my niece is calling, I'm gonna go call, and I come down and people are like, what was that about? And I'm like, oh, she just came out. And we were like, what? I'm like, yeah. I go, the only thing that bothered me about it was that I didn't know sooner. Like that you had told, that was the only
that was the thing when I started questioning my sexuality, is like, why haven't I done this sooner? Why haven't I, stepped out of that compulsory heterosexuality sooner? And
that's why it's what you expect to be.
It's very common. Common, and
So before we go, give some parents, if you can, kind of some tips on if their child is, even if their child's not openly, but if how do we provide a safe place for our kids to figure out who they are, and if a child, does come out or say I think I'm bisexual or gay, how to respond to that in a way that's going to be supportive, and help them figure that out.
Just being open. Yeah, just being open, being okay, and then being there when they fall, because even in gay relationships, you still have, relationship problems, especially as a teenager. You still have relationship drama at school and stuff like that. And
I think that's really good. It's like your kid is your kid, and allowing them, and again, viewing it as we're trying to figure out who we are, without judgment. Without judgment. That's really good.
Yeah.
So in the moving forward, what does the world look like when it's not heteronormative?
It's just, hopefully people won't be scared of coming out.
Mhm.
People can just be who they want to be.
Will you
without
even have to come
fear.
out?
No, you won't have to come out.
'Cause
No.
coming out
Yeah.
means that,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you won't have to come out. You'll just be. You'll just be.
Yeah.
You won't
Yeah.
put your kids in these boxes of
And make them afraid to tell you who they really are.
and set these norms and these expectations
Yeah.
for them
Yeah.
before they even know who they are.
Well, your generation is coming up that way. So I think when your kids get to that point, you're going to be a lot more open. Of course, they'll probably come up with something else that throws you off and you're like, what? But it'll be a lot, I think your generation already is a lot
My
more.
kids will come out as like robots,
Yeah.
sexual, and I'll be like, they're not a person.
That's not okay. It's not okay. But I think I already see that your generation is a lot more, as a whole, seems to be more accepting and, of who you are. That's just you. We're not going to judge you for you. And I love that. And I think I see more. And I think that comes not just gender, not just sexuality. It's race, it's religion, it's all of these things. Like you're different from me.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you wrong. That just makes you different than me. Right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love you, girl. Right? Yay. All right, we're gonna tune off, and that was fun.